If you're a man over 60 and you find yourself waking up 3 or 4 times every night just to use the bathroom, let me be clear, that is not normal. Don't believe anyone who tells you it's just part of aging. The truth is, it's neither harmless nor natural. And the real reason behind it might actually shock you. There's one simple habit, something you repeat every single day without even noticing, that's quietly irritating your prostate, disturbing your sleep, and slowly draining your energy and quality of life. The problem is almost nobody is warning you about it. Not your friends, not your family, and sadly, not even many doctors. My name is Dr. Henry Miles, and I'm a men's health specialist with over 30 years of experience treating prostate issues, erectile dysfunction, low testosterone, and everything that affects a man's vitality. Over the years, I've helped thousands of men in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s reclaim their strength, confidence, and independence. Most men assume that their prostate enlarges simply because they're getting older. But that's only half the truth. I want you to consider this: what if age isn't the main culprit? What if a hidden everyday behavior is silently triggering inflammation that leads to urgency, weak flow, and those frustrating late-night bathroom trips? Stick with me, because in just a moment, I'll reveal exactly what that dangerous habit is, why it's secretly sabotaging your health, and most importantly, how you can stop it naturally without relying on medications or surgery. I'll also share a powerful 15-second bedtime ritual my patients use to sleep straight through the night and finally wake up feeling like themselves again. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button, and don't forget to turn on the bell so you never miss another tip designed specifically for men over 60. If this message resonates with you, type the number 1 in the comments below. If not, type 0 so I'll know how to serve you better. Now let's uncover the first hidden habit, the one that so many men believe is helping their prostate, when in fact it's making things much worse. Have you ever tried cutting back on drinking water in the evening just to avoid waking up at night? If you have, then you need to hear the truth behind this seemingly harmless habit. This is what I call Habit 10: reducing water intake to prevent nighttime urination. I can't tell you how many men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s have proudly sat in my office and told me, "Doctor, I've started drinking less water at night so I don't have to keep running to the bathroom." At first it sounds logical. Less water means less urine, fewer bathroom trips. But the reality is the exact opposite. Every time I hear this, I smile gently and say, "I know you mean well, but that habit is actually making things worse." Here's why. When you cut back too much on water, especially later in the day, your urine becomes darker, more concentrated, more acidic, and far more irritating to your bladder. That irritation creates pressure, and that pressure pushes against your already sensitive prostate. The result, you actually feel the urge to go more often, not less. When the bladder is constantly exposed to concentrated urine, it becomes agitated and overactive, sending false signals to empty, even when it's only half full. That's why so many men wake up at 2 a.m., then again at 3 a.m., and once more at 5 a.m., rushing to the bathroom only to release a tiny trickle. It's frustrating, it's exhausting, and night after night, it slowly chips away at your confidence, your mood, and your quality of life. I've had patients nearly in tears telling me they just want one solid night of uninterrupted sleep again. And I understand that more than you know. But the solution is not to deprive your body of water. In fact, dehydration is one of the most overlooked triggers of prostate inflammation. Without proper hydration, your body can't flush out toxins, your tissues swell, and your natural healing slows down dramatically. So what's the answer? It's actually very simple. Stay hydrated consistently throughout the day. Don't wait until you feel thirsty. That's already too late. Instead, sip small amounts regularly, starting in the morning and continuing through the early evening. Your goal should be light, clear urine. That's your body's way of telling you everything is balanced and working properly. If you're worried about drinking water too close to bedtime, just taper off about 90 minutes before you sleep. But don't stop completely. Water isn't your enemy, it's your ally. It's the most natural, accessible tool you have to soothe your bladder ease, prostate pressure, and finally sleep peacefully through the night. Now you might be wondering, if cutting back on water makes things worse, what about sitting too long? Could those lazy afternoons in your recliner actually be fueling prostate problems too? The answer is yes. This brings us to habit 9, sitting for long periods without movement. I remember one of my patients, a retired school principal named William. He told me he spent most of his day sitting watching TV, reading the newspaper, or working on crossword puzzles at the kitchen table. He laughed and said, "Doc, I've earned this rest." And he had. But what William didn't realize, what most men don't realize, is that too much sitting, especially as we age quietly, works against our prostate health. Here's what happens. When you sit for hours without standing or stretching, you create constant low-level pressure on your pelvic region. That pressure slows down blood flow to the prostate, and when circulation slows, inflammation builds. The body can't deliver nutrients effectively. It can't carry waste away as quickly. Slowly, the tissues around your prostate begin to swell. The result, more urgency, a weaker stream, or even discomfort whenever you sit too long. It doesn't happen overnight, and that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. It sneaks up on you little by little, an extra bathroom trip here, a restless night there, and an uneasy feeling that something just isn't right. I've seen it countless times, men who become trapped in their chairs, only to end up trapped in a vicious cycle of worsening symptoms. The truth is, our bodies were designed to move. Movement isn't just about fitness or losing weight, it's essential for prostate health and overall vitality. It all comes down to circulation and energy. For men over 60, keeping blood flow strong is one of the most powerful ways to protect the prostate. And the good news is, you don't need a gym membership or complicated workouts. Just one simple rule can change everything. Every 30 minutes, stand up. That's it. Just stand, stretch your arms, roll your shoulders, take a few steps around the room, or glance out the window and breathe deeply. If you need to set a gentle reminder on your phone, these tiny movements relieve pelvic pressure, restore circulation, and remind your body that it's still active, still vital, still alive. Remember William, the retired principal I mentioned it earlier. He took this advice to heart. He set a timer and made sure to move every half hour. Within 2 weeks, he was sleeping better. After a month, he told me he felt lighter, more energized, and most importantly, more in control of his body. So if you're spending long hours sitting, whether it's watching sports, reading, or just relaxing, remember this: a still body invites silent problems, but a moving body invites healing. And speaking of hidden troublemakers, there's another one that sneaks into your daily routine, your morning coffee. Could that innocent cup be irritating your prostate more than you realize? That brings us to habit 8, overconsumption of caffeine. I'll be honest, this one hits home for me. I love the smell of freshly brewed coffee in the morning. That first warm sip feels like a small gift. And for many of my patients, especially those enjoying slow, quiet mornings in retirement, that daily cup of coffee feels almost sacred. But here's what I've learned after decades of treating prostate issues: too much caffeine, even from something as familiar and comforting as coffee or tea, can quietly wreak havoc on your bladder and your prostate. Caffeine is a stimulant. It doesn't just wake up your brain, it wakes up your entire urinary system. It increases urine production and stimulates bladder muscles, often causing more frequent urges to go. For a young, healthy man, that might just be a minor annoyance. But for men over 60, it can become a serious problem. For men over 60, when the prostate is already prone to mild enlargement, that extra jolt of caffeine can tip the balance in the wrong direction. You may find yourself making more trips to the bathroom, especially late in the morning or during the afternoon. Or perhaps you feel like you never quite empty completely. That lingering pressure, the urgency, and even the occasional dribble could all be connected to how much caffeine you are consuming. One of my patients, David, had a routine he thought was harmless: coffee in the morning, iced tea in the afternoon, and sometimes a cola at night. He never gave it a second thought. When I suggested he cut back, enjoy his morning coffee, but switch to herbal or decaf options afterward, he hesitated. "Doc, I've been drinking this stuff for years." I nodded and replied, "That may be exactly why it's time for a change." And sure enough, within just 10 days, he noticed a difference. He wasn't waking up as often during the night. His stream felt stronger. His confidence came back. And to his surprise, he didn't miss the caffeine nearly as much as he thought he would. Now, I'm not telling you to give it up completely. I wouldn't ask you to. That one cup in the morning, enjoy it. But consider stopping there. Your prostate and your sleep might thank you. And while we're on the subject of what we put into our bodies, there's another food category even more disruptive to your hormones and prostate than caffeine. The tricky part is it's probably on your plate more often than you realize. This brings us to habit 7, eating processed and spicy foods regularly. I once had a patient named Robert, 68 years old, who came to me frustrated. He said, "Doc, I've cut back on soda. I'm trying to walk more, but I'm still waking up at night to pee and it's driving me crazy." When I asked him to walk me through his daily diet, he paused, then chuckled. "Well, breakfast is usually bacon and eggs. For lunch, Robert often reached for a deli meat sandwich, and at dinner he proudly admitted he couldn't give up his spicy chili." That's when the real conversation began. Here's what most men don't realize: food isn't just fuel, it's information. Every bite you take sends a signal to your body, and unfortunately, highly processed foods like bacon, sausages, frozen dinners, or even packaged snacks are sending the wrong signals to your prostate. These foods are packed with chemicals, unhealthy fats, and artificial preservatives that increase inflammation throughout the body. When your prostate is already sensitive, those inflammatory signals make everything worse. And it's not just processed foods. Spicy meals, especially hot peppers, chili powders, and fiery sauces, can directly irritate the bladder and pelvic nerves. Once those nerves get overstimulated, it can feel like your bladder is full even when it's not. That means more frequent urges, less control, and more discomfort. But the biggest hidden danger is what these foods do to your hormones. Many processed meals are loaded with trans fats and added sugars that raise estrogen and lower testosterone. That hormonal imbalance is a proven trigger for prostate enlargement, which means the very food on your plate could be making your symptoms worse day after day. When Robert swapped out his usual meals for whole healing foods, grilled chicken, leafy greens, avocado berries, and a small handful of walnuts, he didn't just feel better physically. He looked me in the eye and said, "I feel clearer, stronger, more like myself again." That's the power of eating to heal instead of eating out of habit. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be mindful. Start with just one change: cook at home more often, or add one anti-inflammatory food to your plate each day. Little by little, your body will respond, your prostate will calm down, and your nights will become peaceful again. Even with a perfect diet, there's one daily behavior most men overlook. They think it's harmless, but in reality, it's like a slow-motion earthquake for the prostate. This is habit 6, holding your urine too long. What always surprises me is how casually men dismiss this. "I was stuck in traffic," or "the game was on. I didn't want to miss the second half," or "I figured I could wait until the next rest stop." I get it, life is busy. But after more than 30 years treating men's health, I can tell you this: the seemingly small habit of holding in your urine is one of the most underestimated causes of prostate trouble I see. Here's what's really happening. Every time you resist the urge to go, your bladder stretches beyond its natural limit, like blowing up a balloon just a little too much over and over again. That repeated stretching creates downward pressure directly on your prostate. And your prostate, especially after 60, simply isn't built to handle that kind of pressure on a regular basis. Over time, it irritates delicate tissues, causes swelling, and can even create tiny injuries to the nerves and muscles that control urination. That's why men who hold it too often end up with a weaker stream, that incomplete feeling after going, or even more frequent trips later on. It's your body sounding the alarm. But there's more. When you delay urination too often, your bladder may not empty completely, leaving behind small amounts of urine. That stagnant urine becomes the perfect breeding ground for bacteria, leading to infections, which only add fuel to the fire, inflaming the prostate and irritating the bladder even more. I'll never forget one patient, James, a retired firefighter. He told me he had trained himself for years to ignore the urge during long emergency shifts. To him, it was a badge of discipline. But now at 67, he was waking up 5 times a night, constantly uncomfortable and deeply frustrated. When I explained the connection, James paused, looked down, and said quietly, "I wish someone had told me this sooner." That's why I tell every man the same thing when your body says, "Go, go." Don't wait. Don't hold it in. Your bladder and your prostate are a team. When one suffers, the other suffers too. Listening to your body isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And when it comes to daily habits that cause damage, there's one even more destructive than holding your urine. It doesn't just affect your prostate, it harms your lungs, your blood, and your entire system all at once. The scariest part? Even if you don't do it yourself, simply being around it can still put your health at risk. This is habit 5, smoking, or even being exposed to smoke. I'll never forget a man named Walter, age 72. Strong-willed, proud, and tough after a lifetime in construction. He sat across from me and said, "Doc, I quit smoking 10 years ago, but my prostate is still giving me hell." When I asked if he was ever around other smokers, he hesitated, then admitted, "Every Friday poker night, my buddies light up like it's 1975. What Walter didn't realize, and what so many men don't, is that the prostate is incredibly sensitive to environmental toxins. And cigarette smoke, whether you inhale it yourself or just breathe it secondhand, is one of the most damaging exposures you can face. Each cigarette releases thousands of chemicals. Many of them constrict blood vessels, reduce oxygen levels, and trigger chronic inflammation throughout the body, including the prostate. Over time, these chemicals interfere with your gland's ability to heal and regenerate. Blood vessels feeding the prostate begin to narrow. Tissues stiffen. Immune cells rush in not to repair, but to contain the constant assault, keeping your body stuck in a state of low-grade inflammation. And after 60, your natural detox abilities are already slowing down. That means even occasional smoke exposure can set your prostate health back in a serious way. What's even more alarming is that long-term exposure to cigarette smoke doesn't just worsen prostate enlargement, it can actually increase your risk of developing something far more serious, including prostate cancer. I don't say this to scare you, I say it to wake you up, because it's never too late to make a change. If you're a smoker, please hear this with compassion. Quitting is tough, I know, but it's also the single greatest gift you can give your prostate, your heart, and your future. There's help, available medications, support groups, behavioral therapy. And if you've already quit, that's something to be proud of. But don't let your guard down. Avoid secondhand smoke whenever you can. Your health is still worth protecting. Walter, the man I told you about, took it seriously. He stopped attending those smoke-filled poker nights and started hosting the games at his own home, completely smoke-free. Within weeks, his sleep improved. His nighttime urgency eased. His energy came back. He told me it felt like someone had finally turned down the volume on his discomfort. But here's the surprising part. One of the most dangerous habits of all has nothing to do with what you breathe in. It has everything to do with what you ignore. Because too many men treat their bodies worse than their cars. That brings us to habit 4, skipping yearly prostate checkups. Not long ago, I met a patient named Henry, 66 years old. Well-dressed, polite, but clearly uncomfortable. He had been struggling with frequent urination, low energy, and a dull ache in his lower abdomen for over a year. Yet this was his very first visit to a urologist. When I asked why he had waited so long, he simply shrugged and said, "I didn't want to know." And Henry is not alone. Countless men, strong, intelligent, hardworking men, avoid going to the doctor until their symptoms are impossible to ignore. I get it. There's fear, there's pride, sometimes even embarrassment. But here's what I always tell them. You take your car in for an oil change every few months, not because it's broken, but to keep it from breaking. So why wouldn't you do the same for your body, the most valuable machine you'll ever own? Why should your body deserve any less care than your car? The prostate is a tricky organ. When it starts acting up, it usually does so quietly. No sharp pain, no flashing warning lights, just subtle changes. A weaker stream, an extra trip to the bathroom at night, a restless evening here and there. By the time it becomes obvious, the problem may already be well advanced. The good news is that when caught early, most prostate issues, whether it's benign enlargement or even early-stage cancer, can often be managed with simple lifestyle adjustments and non-invasive treatments. That's why yearly checkups are so essential. A routine physical exam, a PSA blood test, and yes, sometimes even a digital rectal exam can provide life-saving information. These tools aren't about labeling you with a disease. They're about preserving your health, giving you the chance to stay ahead of problems instead of chasing them down later when they've already grown too big. That's exactly what I told Henry. We ran a few simple tests, and thankfully we caught his issue early. With some dietary changes, stress management, and a mild prescription, he turned things around within just a few months. Later, he admitted, "I wish I hadn't waited. I could have saved myself a year of worry." So let me ask you, when was the last time you had your prostate checked? Not because something felt wrong, but because you wanted to stay well. If it's been more than a year, schedule that appointment. Your future self will thank you. And remember, getting checked is only one piece of the puzzle. What you put on your plate every day plays just as big a role. Because the next habit involves a food group most of us grew up eating, yet meal after meal, it may be quietly fueling prostate problems. This brings us to habit 3, eating too much red and processed meat. I remember a man named Joe, 70 years old, a retired Navy veteran and proud Texan. He came to me after struggling for months with broken sleep, a sluggish urine stream, and a growing discomfort in his lower pelvis. When I reviewed Joe's lifestyle, we eventually got to his diet. He chuckled and said, "Doc, I'm a steak guy. Always have been. Nothing beats a big, juicy ribeye." I smiled because I hear that all the time. And I get it. There's something deeply satisfying about a meat-heavy meal. For many men, it's part of their culture, their routine, even a reward at the end of a long day. But here's the truth. Most men don't know a diet high in red and processed meats. Things like bacon, sausage, deli cuts, and yes, those thick steaks can quietly fuel the very inflammation that makes prostate problems worse. These meats are loaded with saturated fats, preservatives, and chemicals that, over time, create chronic low-grade inflammation throughout the body. And when your prostate is already enlarged or sensitive, that inflammation is like pouring gasoline on a fire. It contributes to swelling, hormonal imbalances, and worsening urinary symptoms, especially in men whose digestion and metabolism have slowed with age. Even more concerning, multiple studies have linked regular consumption of red and processed meat to a higher risk of developing serious prostate conditions, including cancer. I'm not telling you this to frighten you. I'm telling you because it's preventable. The food you eat every day is one of the most powerful tools you have. It can either fight inflammation or feed it. When I suggested Joe cut back to red meat just once or twice a week and experiment with leaner proteins like chicken, fish, beans, and lentils, he wasn't thrilled at first. But after a few weeks, he came back with a new perspective. I didn't realize how heavy I'd been feeling until I cut down. My stomach feels calmer. I'm sleeping better. And honestly, I don't miss the meat as much as I thought I would. You don't have to give it up completely. Just bring more balance to your plate. Choose whole, unprocessed foods, things that come from the earth, not a factory. And trust me, your prostate will notice the difference much sooner than you think. Food plays a huge role in prostate health, but there's another hidden force working against you, and it isn't in your kitchen. It's sitting just below your beltline. And believe me, that growing waistline may be doing more damage than you realize. This brings us to habit 2, belly fat and obesity. I once had a patient named Leonard, 64 years old. Soft-spoken, kind, and always trying to keep his sense of humor even when his symptoms were frustrating. He sat down in my office and joked, "Doc, I know I've put on a little belly, but how much trouble can a gut really cause?" I looked him in the eye and gently said, "More than you think, Leonard, especially when it comes to your prostate. That's because belly fat isn't just extra weight. It's metabolically active tissue that sends powerful hormonal and inflammatory signals throughout your body. Fat around the waist doesn't just sit there quietly, it's working against you. This type of fat converts your valuable testosterone into estrogen, directly fueling the growth of prostate tissue. As estrogen rises and testosterone falls, the prostate enlarges. That's when you start to notice more frequent bathroom trips, a weaker stream, and that constant pressure down below. But it doesn't stop there. Belly fat also produces chemicals that promote inflammation, strain your cardiovascular system, and make it harder for your body to regulate blood sugar and blood flow. All of these factors chip away at your energy, vitality, and even your sexual health. So while it may look like just a gut, it's actually a red flag for deeper internal imbalance. Here's the good news. You don't need to lose 30 or 40 pounds to see results. Studies show that even a modest 5% reduction in body weight can noticeably improve prostate symptoms. And it doesn't have to feel overwhelming. For Leonard, it started with small, simple steps, a short morning walk, swapping sodas for water, and adding just one extra serving of vegetables to his dinner plate each night. Within just a few weeks, Leonard noticed something remarkable. He wasn't waking up nearly as often at night, and during the day, he felt more energized. He told me, "Doc, it's not just my prostate. It feels like I'm getting a piece of myself back." The truth is, your waistline tells a story, and when you take steps to reclaim it, you're not just losing inches, you're restoring balance in the places that matter most. But there's still one more habit we need to address. And this one is different. It's not about what you eat, drink, or physically do. It's about something you carry with you every single day. For many men, this is the hidden force that fuels all the others, the silent saboteur of your health. And it's time we call it out. This is habit one: chronic, uncontrolled stress. Out of everything we've talked about, your diet, your habits, your daily routines, this is the one most men ignore, and yet it may be the single most powerful force shaping your prostate health. I've had patients sit across from me, sharply dressed, polite, calm on the surface, but carrying decades of weight on the inside. One man in particular, Richard, told me, "Doc, I'm not the type of the guy who talks about stress. I just keep moving." I nodded because I know that story all too well. Men, especially those over 60, were raised to hold it in, to be the rock, to tough it out no matter what. But what modern medicine and psychology have made crystal clear is this chronic stress doesn't just live in your mind, it lives in your body. And yes, your prostate feels it. When you're under constant stress, your body pumps out high levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol fuels inflammation, tightens the pelvic floor muscles, disrupts hormone production, and robs you of restful sleep. Over time, it drags your testosterone down and makes your pelvic nerves more sensitive to pain and pressure, trapping you in a cycle of worsening symptoms. When stress lingers, it creates the perfect storm for prostate problems to grow and stick around. You might find yourself unconsciously clenching your abdomen, tossing and turning at night, unable to relax. Maybe your patience wears thin, your energy dips, your motivation fades. These are all quiet signals that stress is wearing you down from the inside. Eventually, Richard opened up. He admitted the pressure he carried, worrying about his family finances and what his purpose was now that he had retired. That's when we began to rebuild, not with medication, but with intention. Just 10 minutes of deep breathing each day, a morning walk as the sun came up, journaling once a week, reconnecting with friends, and perhaps most importantly, giving himself permission to rest without guilt. Within weeks, his symptoms began to ease. He started sleeping through the night, his urgency faded, and he told me, "I didn't realize how much I was holding on until I finally let it go." Managing stress isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's leadership over your own health, and it may be the foundation that makes every other habit easier to change. So here we are, we've uncovered all 10 habits that silently fuel prostate enlargement and discomfort. Some were obvious, others hidden, but all of them matter. Don't let this overwhelm you. Because before we close, I want to share something that ties everything together, a simple nightly ritual, just 15 seconds long, that has transformed the lives of so many of my patients. Conclusion: you are not broken, you are simply uninformed. Over the years, I've sat across from hundreds of men just like you, frustrated, exhausted, silently worried about what's happening to their bodies. Some felt embarrassed, some felt angry, most felt alone. And after hearing their stories, I can tell you with absolute certainty, you are not weak, you are not failing, you've just been walking without the full map. And now that you finally see the bigger picture, everything can change. Starting today, cutting back on water, sitting too long, too much caffeine, processed foods, ignoring nature's call, exposure to smoke, skipping checkups, overloading on red meat, belly fat, chronic stress. On their own, each of these might seem minor, but stacked together day after day, they quietly create the perfect environment for your prostate to swell, your sleep to break, and your sense of control to slowly slip away. But here's the part I want you to hear: above everything else, you have the power to turn this around. And it doesn't take radical change. It takes awareness. It takes small, consistent steps. It takes listening to your body instead of overriding it. And it takes treating yourself with the same care and urgency you'd give to someone you love. Most men wait until they hit the wall, until they're up 5 times a night, until intimacy begins to fade, until the pills start to pile up. But what if you didn't wait? What if starting tonight you gave your body the tools it's been quietly begging for? One of the most effective tools I've ever shared with my patients is what I call the 15-second bedtime ritual. It's simple, it's safe, and it's built on the same principles we've covered today: reducing pressure, calming the nervous system, and supporting your bladder and prostate while you sleep. Men who practice this nightly tell me they wake up less, sleep deeper, and finally feel in control again. And the best part, anyone can start tonight. So here's my encouragement. Go back through the 10 habits we've discussed. Pick one that feels doable and start there. Don't chase perfection, chase progress. You are not too old and it's not too late. Your prostate is listening, and now you have the voice to speak to it. The fact that you've made it this far tells me something important. You're ready. Let's move forward together. If this video helped you even in a small way, please hit the like button. It lets me know this content is truly making a difference. Share it with a friend, a brother, or someone you care about who might be silently struggling. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me which habit hit home for you. Your voice matters. Finally, if you'd like to support the channel and help us reach even more men over 60 with life-changing health advice, consider making a small donation. Every bit helps us create more content made just for you. Thank you for being here.